Collage animations are complex, but not complicated. And it doesn't have to be. By focusing on the fundamentals as well as core techniques inside After Effects that are already easy to use, you can achieve professional results without using plugins or extra tools. So in this video, I'll show you that one technique that will take your collage animations to the next level. And that technique is called masking, which is the process of creating and controlling the visibility of shapes and layers. And it's especially dynamic and versatile when creating collage style animations. Mastering this one technique will give you the flexibility to create advanced and eye-catching results, like in this video from Shy Guy, or this YouTube short from Ali Abdal, or this long-form video from Vox, or even from my most recent Instagram reel that created a lot of engagement. So I have prepared for you 4 mini projects to demonstrate how masking can be used to create dynamic and engaging collage style animations. Now, if you want to follow along with me or dig into the techniques that I've shown in this video, then download the After Effects project file as well as the collage assets folder that I've included all for free. Link is in the description below. Now, let's enter the portal. Before we get into the 4 mini projects, here's a quick introduction to masking. Masking is an artistic technique with roots in traditional art, where artists used stencils and coverings to block out parts of a canvas for selective visual effects. So in After Effects, by applying masking to layers, users can reveal or hide specific areas, enabling dynamic animations and effects. Masking's versatility in After Effects is particularly beneficial for collage animation. Let me show you with this first mini project, the page tear reveal effect. So here in the first example, I used this effect as a hook for one of my reels, which was about what motion graphics is. You can check it out on my Instagram channel, which actually features a lot of exclusive content that I put out, which covers a plethora of topics on creativity and the creative process, but also specific techniques and tips for visual artists. So when I go back to this example, you will see that right at the beginning, I basically transition from a scene that's behind this image and it tears into this part. So how I did this was completely by using masking. And you can do a lot with this page tear reveal effect. Not only can you of course mask out the two footages and create the tear effect, but you can also add interesting paper style, collage style effects on this paper tear reveal. So for instance, these edges that you see on the side, I used this different color combination for these two page tear reveals. Now let's dive into the mini project and I'll show you exactly how I achieved this result. So this is just the first few seconds of my Instagram reel where I used this paper tear reveal effect. And I'm gonna just turn off all the layers and switch them back on one by one in the order of appearance, starting with the background. So here we have the first layer, which is basically just a scientific paper background, which you can get anywhere online, copyright free. And then what I did is immediately added another layer, which is the moving grainy texture layer. And I'm going to include this file in the project folder, which is available for download for you guys. And if I play this back, you'll see that the grainy texture is kind of rotating and revolving around the screen, which is on top of this scientific paper. And then we have a few shapes, which you can't see right now because it actually animates in like this. And this is basically called secondary animation, when you add animation that emphasizes the primary action. And the primary action is of me tearing the paper and kind of revealing myself from behind the paper, and the shape scaling up just adds to that motion. So I'm gonna bring the video back once more just to demonstrate that quickly for you guys. So here's me with the video, and it's very subtle, but when you're watching this in the first 3 seconds on social media, it does make an impact. It makes a difference when you add those small details. And by the way, I have a full video on how secondary animation works out as an animation principle. So make sure to check it out from the card above. So now I'm going to show you the next layer that I used, which is the footage layer, the main footage layer. However, I also have these two colored layers. So here we have the blue outline paper layer, and we have the yellow outline paper layer. And now together we have this effect. And I'll show you exactly how I got the blue and yellow layer to match up with the main action. It's actually so much simpler than you may imagine. Then after this, we have the next layer, which are the text layers. So I'm going to turn all of them on, which is what is motion graphics. And I'm going to play it back again. And then we have what is motion graphics. And then I also added them in steps so that it appears just as I speak those words. And now I have another composition called shapes, which is again just a bunch of shapes in and around the canvas. But this time you'll see that the shapes appear on top of the video. And this just creates some really nice depth and adds to the entire visual interest of the composition. So now let's talk about how I created this kind of tear effect and also how I created these blue and yellow outline paper shapes to match up with the video. So I'm going to double click on the footage layer and I'll show you exactly what I've done here. So as you can already imagine, I have used masking as the main technique to create this, but let me show you a little bit behind the curtain what's going on and how I prepared for this shot even before entering After Effects. Because sometimes if you want to have a dynamic tear effect like this where I'm kind of acting in the video to augment that tear and to sync that up in After Effects later, I need to prepare that before in the footage. And I need to know how my action is going to be as well. And I'm basically visualizing the whole thing on how I'm going to use masking in After Effects to do this. So let me demonstrate that a bit more by showing you exactly what's happening under the hood. To do that, I'm going to go down to the first video layer, twirl it down with this triangle icon, and you can immediately see that I've added a mask and I have a lot of keyframes here. We'll get into that in a second. Then let's twirl down the mask again. And then we have to come to this little area where there's another twirl down. And once I twirl down, I'll click none and this removes the mask and shows you exactly what I'm doing underneath the video. And here you can see exactly what I was doing in front of the camera, knowing that I'm going to mask this later. So I basically acted like I opened up a window and then I moved my hand away from the shot and went into the talking video. So I had to plan all of that from before. And another thing to keep in mind is I also knew that I have to cover my face completely to make sure that effect has that impact. So here we have it. And now what we're going to quickly do is twirl these layers back down and then turn the masks back on. So here we have the second one and then the final one. And now you see that I have a mask here. So I basically just contained the whole footage into my hand shape and then traced the mask to follow the action of my hand and then just continue that for the entire video till I have just the mask covering my body. And how I did that was, let me twirl this down. Here's the mask layer. And if I click on this mask path layer, and you will see all the little mask points I built with the pen tool. And don't worry, right now I just want to show you guys what I did frame by frame in order to achieve this result. With the next mini project right after this one, I will be showing you the entire process on how to mask out something. I'll talk about all the little details and tips and tricks to make the masking really clean and really good. And I will also tell you how to add keyframes and animate things in a way where it looks like it's paper being torn. So to add that choppy handmade effect in the animation. I will also talk a lot more about adding effects on our footage and our masks to create it even more like a collage style animation so that it fits into the whole collage style world. So now coming back to this little demonstration, if I just press plus on the keyboard, I can zoom into the timeline and I can show you that I'm going frame by frame, increasing the mask, but always following the hand. And wherever I'm not moving my hand, I'm just skipping the frame. And then again, when I see a big movement of the hand, I'm always putting down a frame. The more frames you put down, the more control you have, the cleaner the final result is. So if you have the time to actually do it every keyframe, I advise that. You will only get a much better result, but you don't really have to do that. As you can see here, I have a huge pause because my hand is just staying static. And then again, I continue this when my hand kind of goes away. and then I'm opening up the entire mask. So now that you know how I animated this masking effect to create this paper tear reveal, I'm now going to show you how I got these blue and yellow outlines. The way I did this was I simply duplicated this layer, the main footage, and then I went into the effects and presets panel and typed in fill and then just dropped the fill effect on that duplicated footage layer. I've only renamed it now, but it was actually the same layer as before. I renamed it to yellow, and now you can already see that the color has changed. That's because the fill layer has the color red, but the moment I change this color, you'll see that that color is changing. I can even take the eyedropper tool, go back to that yellow again, press OK, and now we have that yellow. And then what I did was I just took that composition and I offsetted it. So if I move this composition around, you can see it's the exact same shape, but I'm just offsetting it a little bit. And then what I did was I duplicated that footage again, called it blue, applied another fill effect, and then I offsetted that composition on the other direction. So that's a very simple way of creating this very interesting colored paper effect on this footage. And that's it for our little demonstration on this paper tear reveal effect. The next mini project that I'm going to show you is going to be the paper motion effect. And now we're going to deep dive into that entire masking process. And I'm really going to go into the details and give you a lot of advanced tips. So stick around. So I've been trying this new technique out in my short form videos on Instagram, and these are some examples from those videos. So the paper in motion effect is basically just this part where I'm moving in the video, but there's this kind of paper effect that follows me, and this is also created completely through masking. And here's another example to show you the same. This is again from one of my tips video on my Instagram, and as you can see, the door kind of opens up and the background is like this collage paper, and I really like this effect. And I think it's extremely engaging, and it got a lot of engagement on my Instagram. So now let me show you how I achieved this result. So right here I've got this composition already set up, and you can download these project files, of course, from the link in the description below. And you will see that I've provided you guys with this layer called paper background, which is actually a footage layer, and it's basically a scientific paper background with a grainy effect on top. And I also have a footage ready for you guys for this tutorial. It's just me kind of walking into the frame with my shoes on and just leaving. I'll show you also by the end of this how interesting you can make this and how you can kind of merge real world footage on top of collage animation effects and create something very interesting. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that the footage is selected. I'm just going to go up to the pen tool right up here with this fountain pen icon on this toolbar. As you can see, if I hover on top, the shortcut is the letter G on the keyboard. So I can just have the mouse here on the viewport and click on G. And then if I click V, I'm back to the mouse. So let's already start implementing shortcuts. And then again, G for the pen tool. And now this is very important. Look at the little icon next to the pen tool. It's like a small square with a dot in the middle. That tells you that I'm on mask mode. So for instance, if I have a shape layer and I click the pen tool, you'll see the pen tool has a star icon next to it, which means if I use the pen tool now, it's going to create a shape. Just a solid shape. Let me just delete the shape layer. If on the other hand, I have the pen tool, but I have the footage selected, automatically the pen tool will have the mask option turned on. And that is this small square with the dot in the middle. And now if I create a small shape, what it's going to do is it's going to create a mask on that video. So only the amount that I've selected with my pen tool or the shape that I created, you're going to look at the video through that shape. So if I just move this around, you can see that the video is actually still underneath. So I'm going to delete this mask. And once you delete the mask, you're going to see the video come back, right? Because that little window you created is now not there anymore. But we are going to create a window, and this time I'm going to create a small mask by tracing along the part of the footage that I want in the collage animation at the end. And that is going to be my feet. So I'm going to start creating a mask. So you can zoom all the way in by pressing down on Z, and then you've got this magnifying glass icon. And then if you press the mouse button with Z pushed down onto the keyboard, you can zoom in, and with the letter Z being clicked down, if you press Alt as well or Option depending on Mac or Windows and click the mouse button, you're going to zoom out. So I'll go zoom in all the way, click G to go into the pen tool again, and now I'm going to just trace the shoe Now as you can see, I have already created the mask and you can only see the foot. But I can adjust this mask and make it much more cleaner by just going in and holding these path points that I've created with the pen tool and basically just pushing them in or pushing them out just to adjust the shape and make sure that we are on the right track. So now when the mask is done, it's important to go back to the selection tool to select these path points individually. So you can see already that these squares that represent these points, this is not solid, like this is not filled up. The one that I'm selecting is the one that's filled with this color. So you know that I'm only selected with this point and I can move it around, I can drag it up and down. But you can see here as well that below this is quite well rounded. The shoe is slightly rounded here, but this point is quite edgy, right? So what I'm going to do is go to the pen tool, drop down, go to the convert vertex tool, and then just click on this and get the Bezier handles. And now by adjusting these Bezier handles, I can create a smooth curve. This is how you kind of navigate around After Effects with masks. And right now the shape is quite crazy because actually at this moment my leg was almost blurred out. But if we go a few frames forward, and by the way, the shortcut to go few frames forward on the timeline is hold down Command or Control and hit the right arrow. And every time you hit the right arrow, you go 1 frame forward. And if you want to go 10 frames forward in one go, then you press down Control or Command on the keyboard with Shift press down and then right or left arrow. And now I'm going 10 frames forward. If you look at the timeline right now, you can see. And you can't see anything because now we can only see the mask. We are going to move a few frames forward and I can already see from within this window mask that now the hazy blur is gone and my foot is kind of in the air but stable. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to first go back, twirl down the mask 1 property and press the keyframe icon right here next to the mask path. And now we have a keyframe. And if I go a few frames forward where I want the mask to continue, what I'm going to do now, and this is important, is that I'm going to just be on the selection tool, which is V on the keyboard. Make sure I have this icon as my mouse and then hold and drag over this area and make sure that I've selected the whole mask. So all the squares are now filled up. And then I'm going to just go into one square and double click. And once I double click, I've got this transform box, and this is extremely helpful. So what happens essentially with the transform box is now I can use this mask almost like a shape. You can see. So right now I'm just holding this kind of place in the corner and I can basically rotate this around. I can even scale this down if I want. I can go here and then just scale this down. I can make it big, I can make it small, but I'm going to press Command Z to go all the way back to where I was. So I can show you what I'm doing now for this technique. What I will do now is while this whole transform box is selecting the mask, I'm going to move this mask forward. And you'll see that it's not going to match up exactly perfectly. You see the foot is kind of swinging quite high up right now. It's just changed the shape. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try to add the corner edge here to the foot and then I'm going to manipulate the mask completely to the new shape. Now I'm still in the transform box mode. I'm going to just double click on one of these mask path points. Anyone will do, and then I'm going to just basically select one, and just now you see that I've just selected this Bezier handle by mistake. Make sure we don't do that because then you're not selecting the point, actually you're just selecting this handle and that's going to just manipulate the shape. We don't want that. I'm going to Command Z and go back. We want to take this point itself, and if you can't find it properly, you just zoom in and kind of move this point like this, but I'm going to zoom out for now. Now here's another advanced tip. To make sure that you're correctly tracing the shape, you can also come down here to the mask option below and then click on this drop down next to the word inverted on the left side, and you'll see a couple of options. Right now we are selected add, but if you select subtract, you can see that the mask has flipped and now you can see the part that you have not selected. Much better is that if you go to the list here and click on none, you'll see that you can actually see the shape beneath and then trace your mask accurately in that way. So now I'm going to continue with the rest of the masking and we're going to come back when it's all done. Now what we have is we've got these two shapes. Right now what you can see is that we've dropped 2 keyframes. We created this first frame and masked it and then went a few frames forward and then masked it here. So at this point you can see already that when I'm moving from this frame to this frame, there's a lot of distortion happening in the middle. So we've traced the first frame and the 5th frame, but the 2nd, 3rd and 4th in the middle are not exactly traced. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go in and adjust the mask accordingly so that it's traced in every frame. However, because collage animation is a style that's handmade and it's got certain imperfections, it's fine if we skip a frame. And I just wanted to mention that you can also, while having one mask on the footage layer, you can also go to the pen tool and create a second mask that's simultaneously running next to the first one. Here I've created the second mask, and it's done this because for the second mask, if you look at the list here, we are still on add. So if I go to none, then both will show, and I can have multiple masks on the same layer. This is very important for people who want to do complex collage animations. It's important to know that you can create multiple masks and control them separately and animate them separately with different keyframes. Yeah, this is extremely important to keep in mind. Now I'm going to carry on. Let's watch it back. And there you have it. So now we have an actual real footage animated in a handmade style walking into this collage animation style environment. What we're going to do now is take this to the next level. And to start with, I'm going to just go back to this example, and I want to augment this yellow and blue colored paper background which is next to the footage and that follows the footage as well. The first thing I'm going to do is select the footage layer, duplicate it, and now we have two footage layers, one on top of each other. And the first thing I'm going to do is just shift the composition with my arrow keys and offset it a little bit from the main composition. Now we have two footage layers, one slightly moved below, so it creates a kind of outline underneath the main composition. What I'm going to quickly do is change the color of the mask of the duplicated footage, just so you guys know that I have two compositions here. And there you go. The green one is the duplicated footage. And now what I'm going to do is go to the effects and presets panel, type in fill, and then just add the fill effect onto the duplicated footage. And now you can see that that duplicated footage is no more showing the video because I've overridden that with this fill effect, and now it's just filled in with the color I choose. And right now by default we have the red, and because we offsetted that duplicated footage slightly, you can now see this outline effect. Now what I'm going to do is take it one level higher. I'm going to duplicate that footage once more, and this time offset it above the footage. However, it's important to remember that both the duplicated footage which you want to use as an outline should both be below the main composition. And now because it's the duplicated composition, I already have the fill effect on it. Maybe let's go for something like green. And now we have this outline effect following our video, which is a really cool way of creating this collage style animation effect. There are endless possibilities in what that video footage would be. It could be a hand waving, it could be something tearing into the page, it could be anything you want. And what I'm also going to do now, just to enhance the quality of the video, I'm going to go to the effects and presets panel once more and look for hue and saturation, and then just increase the saturation a little bit. And I can also look for the levels effect and then just manipulate these handles slightly to enhance the footage. Alright, so we have the outline. Now the next thing what I'm going to do is make this even more interesting by adding some vector shapes into the composition. And what I'm thinking is maybe we can do an interesting floor for the foot to actually walk on. And I'm going to do this very quick and dirty just for this tutorial, but you can add a lot more effects and textures on top of it. So now I'm going to grab the pen tool, and this time make sure that we have the star icon next to the pointer. So now we know that it's a shape, and then I'm going to just draw a rectangle that looks kind of like a floor, and then send it behind all of the three footage layers, including the duplicate. So now it looks like the foot is actually planted on top of this shape. And I'm just going to randomly pick a color here. Let's go for brown. And then I'm going to slant this slightly just to create an interesting visual interest. And then let's watch how it looks now. Very cool. And now I think maybe I'm going to add some text here just to make this a little bit more interesting. Maybe we'll go with Berlin shoes. And maybe I'll rotate this a little bit to line it up with this floor, just to have an interesting composition. And again, remember to put the text layer all the way back. And now we have this very interesting little composition. And you know what? I'm gonna animate the text as well. What I'm gonna quickly do is go to the text layer, open up the position property, and I'm gonna drop a keyframe right here when the foot is just about to walk in and step onto the floor. That may be a good time to animate the text in. And then I'm going to also open up the opacity property, and by the way, the shortcut is T on the keyboard. And now I'm going to drop another keyframe and then go a few frames forward, and I'm also going to turn the opacity completely down in the beginning, but this time positioning the text below the shape layer. So again, remember to have the text below the shape layer. And now I'm going to select the keyframes, easy ease. I'll do a little bit of a graph adjustment. Maybe it can enter quickly and then slowly come into place. And another thing I really like to do, which always makes animations a little bit more interesting and dynamic, I'm going to take the opacity keyframes and just nudge it forward so that there's a little bit of a stagger effect between the position and opacity. And now we have this result. And there you have it, a quick mini project of how to use masking to mask out an entire real footage and create an entire collage style animation from it. And now it's time for the next project. I call this one paper layering. So this little snippet is taken again from one of my previous YouTube videos, which is actually a part of my podcast called the Creatorportal podcast, which is available on Spotify and also on this YouTube channel. And this was actually from one of the episodes called Every Creator's Superpower, and you can watch the video here. So this little snippet was actually from a part where I was kind of talking about something that happened in my career as a creative, and I took parts of that story and I created this composition. And basically, if I go into this image, I can show you that actually this laptop and this lamp are the only two things that are actually assets that are free stock photos taken from online. Everything else that you see in this scene are actually real assets and real images from my room that I've taken a picture of from my phone camera. And actually I went into detail about this topic in my earlier collage animation video, which was called Collage Animation Secrets. And there I did a deep dive into how to create your own assets, how to plan your own assets when you're doing a collage animation, how to pre-visualize a project like this. So here I can show you that the table, the flower pot, the book here, and of course myself, they are all actually taken from all around this room. I've taken a photo of it and I've just masked them out. But I also want to tell you a little bit more on what other treatments did I do to this composition to make it look more like a part of a collage animation. So I'm going to basically just open up the composition that I've already prepared for this tutorial. So again, we start with this background layer and we have this background layer with the grungy texture. I'm going to just drop the three images that I took from the desktop into the project panel right here. I'm already going to rename this and call this table, and I'm going to call this flower pot. So there we have it. Now I'm going to just drag the table image down here. What I'm going to first immediately do is take the pen tool, and again you can see the square and the dot next to the pen tool to show you that this is actually the masking tool enabled. So what I'm going to do is just carefully trace this table, again using the Bezier handles. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to drop in the image of the character, which is actually a picture of myself from the video I had taken before. Now I have a character in the composition, and the other thing that I'm going to add now is basically the laptop. And now this image was actually taken from FreePic. It's too large here. I'm going to just reduce this, and I'm going to also quickly again take the pen tool and mask this out. Again, we are not looking for perfection here, because collage animation allows for a little bit of imperfections when you're cutting things out, which is the beauty of this style. So now very quickly we've got the laptop we want, and I'm going to take the laptop layer and actually put it beneath the character. I'll rename my layers. That's a very good habit to have. The laptop of course is a bit too big for the image, so I can actually have it right here. Maybe slightly bigger would do the trick. I guess this is pretty okay. And of course, I can also remove what's inside the laptop. Here, I'm gonna also teach you guys something very interesting with masking. I can just take this and now see what happens. Nothing actually happens because I need to go to the laptop layer, twirl this down, twirl into masks, and now you can see the two masks. One is the one that masks the laptop shape out of the earlier image, and then now we have the second mask, which is of the screen. But nothing's really happening because in this drop down, it's still on add. But the moment we go into subtract, we have now an empty space. So we only have the frame of the laptop. And now we can very easily just go in and create like a shape layer and color this maybe white, and then go into the shape layer, twirl this down, go into the contents, going to rectangle, rectangle path. And now you can see you can't really manipulate the path of this shape. And that's because we haven't activated the Bezier path. So you can do that by coming down here to the rectangle path, right click, then click convert to Bezier path. So now the shape will have a path that you can actually use. So if you click on the path, you're gonna see just like the mask has paths, we have paths here as well. And now I can actually just pull these individual points in and make it exactly fit the laptop. I'm gonna bring this down behind the character, and now we have an empty screen. So now these are just quick ways of basically manipulating images when you're creating collage style animation. So a lot of information in this video, but all of them should kind of help you basically figure out what is involved in manipulating real images and real videos when it comes to creating a kind of combined mixed media style collage animation. And that's it for the second project. You can already imagine by using masking and just stock images and your own assets, you can create completely new compositions in a collage style like this. And there are no limits to the possibilities in this technique. And I'm looking forward to the way you guys will use it and the projects that you'll create out of this. And if you've been finding value in this video and you like content like this where I deep dive into techniques and tips, but also the podcast where I talk about creative mindset and also the short stories that I create about creative process, then do consider subscribing to this channel and hitting the bell icon so that you're notified every time I upload a video like this. Every subscription goes a long way in supporting me in creating these very intricate and long form tutorials, which takes a lot of time and energy, and it just gives me so much more encouragement to keep doing what I'm doing. And if you have specific suggestions for any future videos, drop them in the comments and I respond to everybody. And this final project is called the window effect. Let me show you an example. So basically this effect is created by using an image that creates a window. So this can be an actual window or a television or a laptop or a screen where I can actually show something inside that object, and there are again infinite ways one can do that. Actually, there's a very interesting video by Shy Guy where he kind of showed this window effect through a door. So there are many examples through which you can do this. In my example, I've got this old television which I added more graphics to make more interesting. And here you can see me basically in the screen talking to you from inside the television. And I think this is also a very interesting and cool masking based effect that you can use in your collage animations to have very interesting and dynamic results. Now let me show you how this is done. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to free pick and then search for an old television. I'm gonna just try to find one right off the bat and not spend too much time on this, but I'm just gonna probably settle with this one. This is a funny, interesting looking one. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna just download this image, and now I'm just dropping the image from my downloads folder directly into After Effects. And this image, as usual from FreePic, is really big. What I'm gonna do is go to my pen tool, make sure the image is selected. I have the mask icon showing here next to the pen, and I'm gonna basically just mask this out using all the techniques that I've already spoken to you guys about. So once again, very quick and dirty, I have now the image of the television, and I'm guessing you guys already know where this is going. I'm basically going to take one of the footage that I've already had. Let's take this one, which is from my old YouTube video. So I'm gonna just drag in one of the footages that I had ready in the folder, and you can use your own here. I'm gonna just take this footage from my old YouTube video, which is called The Creator's Superpower. And it's a podcast episode actually. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to basically place this inside that television. But first what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to select the right moment of the video that I want to show inside the television. Maybe here where I'm trying to explain something, I can take it here. Another useful keyboard shortcut, Command Shift D to split the video or the layer, and then I'll delete the one from behind because I don't want this part, and now we have just this video. I don't need all this other part of the video, so what I'm going to do is go to the rectangle tool, and again with the image selected, and you can see I can create masks not only with the pen tool. I can also use these shape tools and create masks of that shape. So I'm going to take the rectangle tool and then just create a rectangle around myself here, and then bring this down to the size that I want to fit into this television. I'm going to just increase this slightly, make sure it's just a part of the border. Now what I'm going to do is take the mask and basically try to pin this down into the corner of the screens. And then of course go into the pen tool, just add some points here on the side, and then pull these points and make sure that we line up perfectly with the edges. I will need one more here in the bottom. And then what I'm gonna do is I can zoom in and then use the convert vertex tool to basically even these out and make it more like the shape of the television. And now we have this video inside this television, and to make this even more realistic, I'm going to go to free pick again and then type in TV static and then click on videos for the asset type, and then I'm going to just basically choose just any one of them right now. I can maybe take this one, and then I'm going to just drop the effect on here. And now what I can do is basically just below this TV static layer, I've got this masked out layer already of the shape, and I want the TV static to be in the size of just that screen, and I've already defined that by masking my earlier footage. So what I'm going to do is come down here to the footage that I masked out and duplicate it. Now I have two of them, and I'm going to use one of them as a track matte for the noise layer. And now I have the TV noise. I'm going to check that back on, and you're going to see it fills the screen, but I'm going to bring this below the duplicated layer. Now I'm going to go to the TV noise layer, go into track matte, and then click on the video that I had selected. And now it's just contained in that shape because I'm using that masked layer as a track matte. And now the TV noise is a little bit too big. So what I'm going to do is decrease the size of this to a reasonable amount. And I think this makes more sense. And then also reduce the opacity. And now we have a TV static effect. And what I can do now here is just put some keyframes on the opacity property of this TV static layer so that it kind of blinks slightly. And what I'm going to do is just have this on 100%, then I'll go back down to 80%, then maybe go back to 75%. Then back to 100, and then I'll just turn it off, and then the video will come back in. And maybe I won't turn it off completely. Maybe I'll have slight bit of the noise actually on the video so that it looks like it's still in that effect. And now what I'm going to do is right click on the keyframe, toggle hold keyframe, and now we have this effect. And that's how you basically get the window effect, and you can use this for many objects and have all kinds of results and make very interesting and dynamic looking collage animations. So now with these 4 mini projects, we've learned what a crucial role masking plays in collage animations. I did say at the beginning of this video that collage animations are complex but not complicated. So I made it even more simpler for you by breaking down my entire process from concept to animation in this video. And by taking the knowledge from this video and combining it with the techniques you learned today, you will be able to elevate your collage animations to the next level, reach a wider audience, and also stand out in the creative industry. So watch the next video here, and thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.
Change don't change like it used to. Who runs the roost round here? The coop's gone clear. Got the heart from the bass to the snare, but the word is what's keeping them here. Word to my